All right, everyone. We're gonna have a seat.
Okay, everybody, quiet.
And, all right, cool. So, no worries. All right, so my name is Siobhan Martin, class of 2008, and welcome to the AOC reception in honor of the 50th anniversary of OUS. And it's good to see all these beautiful people in the room, connecting, people who haven't been back in years, and it's just like, there's so much energy and love in this room, so we're happy to have you here. Just want to remind everyone to keep in touch, so update your address. Update your information so we can all have your information saved in the system, especially with Colgate and being alumni of color. We want to make sure we capture that information. Also, as one of the chairs of AOC, I've been kind of leading for the last 5 years or so. I want to remind you that we do have Mosaic Weekend coming up in October 19th to the 21st. So it'd be great to have you back. Next year is the bicentennial. This year is starting off the bicentennial. And shout out to President Brian Casey. How are you? So we want to do this again, bigger and better next year. So reunion is going to be one of the pillars for the bicentennial. But as you know, throughout the year, there's going to be a series of all class reunions. So everybody here plus more should return to campus during this time next year. And there'll be events and activities and a ton of information that you can get leading up to the bicentennial, and starting September, we'll be sending all that information out throughout the summer. So we would love for you to be in your regional events, university events. Come back to campus when you can. So I just want to remind you all that. And again, I'm highlighting and shouting out Mosaic Weekend for the 19th to the 21st. And then we have beautiful remarks from Dean Hucks, and Dean Hucks is the Dean of Faculty and the Provost for Colgate. So with that, I will introduce Dean Hucks. Yeah.
Good afternoon and welcome back. I am both honored and humbled to bring remarks on this extraordinary occasion. This is not just one celebration, it's a series of celebrations. This is first and foremost a celebration of 50 years, the golden anniversary of the University Scholars Office of University Studies, OUS program. However, it's also a celebration of those who have recruited for, directed this program, and those on the faculty who have taught for weeks in the summers throughout the decades. It is also a celebration of Colgate, which is an institution which remained committed to this program's continued presence on campus, never allowing any administration to lose sight of its value for this university. And finally, it's a celebration of you and of me and many alumni and current students at Colgate who from one century to the next represent the sheer success of the University Scholars and OUS program. As I speak at this Alumni of Color event, I must confess that I'm humbled to be Colgate's Provost and Dean of the Faculty, the first to represent the dignity and the intelligence of Black womanhood. And thanks to Laura Jack, VP for Communications, and President Casey, I am honored to be the first Black woman to fully grace the cover of the Colgate Senior.
And looking very good.
As a result, my face, now, I did not know Laura was going to release this on Alumni Weekend. But as a result, my face is all over the campus this weekend, which I did not realize the timing. And I am told that some alums have cleared space on their coffee tables to display the issue. I have received requests for autographed copies. At the president's club this morning, class of 1953, he said, if I see you, I want you to autograph my copy. I have gotten many as a result. I'm so proud of you, and even the occasional, girl, you look good. Therefore, I am most honored to be a part of you, those who are alums of the University of Scholars and OUS program and its alumni of color allies. See, our community was those who were part of the program, but we also had students of color who came in who were not part of OUS and the Scholars program, who were allies and part of our community. And we thank them for those friendships over the years. I stand tall as Colgate's Provost and Dean of the Faculty because many of the legacies I bring, ancestral legacies, family legacies, I also bring a shared legacy with all of you. Many of you may remember the end of Spike Lee's movie X, and the children of Nelson Mandela closed the film with a declaration, I am Malcolm X, I am Malcolm X. Well, I embody this position, understanding that I am inextricably linked to you. So I am Diane Ciccone. I am Ernest Piles. I am Elwood Berry. I am Greg Three. I am Leroy Cody. I am Garfield Smith. I am Donovan Anderson. I am Joan Westcar. I am Susan Burrell. I am my sister Erminia Roman. I am Cynthia Duncan Johnson. I am Rich Rivera. I am Teresa Delgado. I am Lisa De Leon. I am Veronica McFall. I am Kathleen Dill. I am Diane Stewart. And also, I am those who have passed on. I am Samuel Archer. I am Gordon Blaine Hancock. I am Adam Clayton Powell Jr. And I am also Anthony Dirk Thompson. I am Aretha Jones. I am Kester Loney, and so many others. In my invitation email to many of you, I wrote that I emailed Colgate under the auspices of the then University Scholars Program founded in 1967. Over the course of the 6-week program, I began my career as a Colgate student, engaged in intensive academics, and encountered those who would become my lifelong friends. I plan to retire with my Colgate friends. As scholars and now OUS alums, we went on to create a vibrant, intellectual, high-achieving networking and supportive communities at Colgate. After Colgate, we use our gifts to enrich communities and industries throughout the nation and the world. On the current OUS website, it reads, the Office of Undergraduate OUS Scholars Program is the second oldest scholars program at Colgate, established in 1967 as a University Scholars Program. Candidates chosen to be a part of the program are a highly select group of students who have demonstrated creativity and determination in the face of personal, economic, and social challenges. They have systematically sought the most demanding academic paths open to them and dedicated themselves to achieving success. The OUS program is a vibrant community of scholars who have a history of making significant and meaningful impacts on campus. So to answer the question in yesterday's session, no, this is not a remedial program. This is a program of high achievers and high achievement. This is a program of success and for the successful. And we embody that collectively in this room. And so on this occasion, I could begin with the brilliant words of Adam Clayton Powell Jr., class of Colgate University class of 1930, when he states, there is no future for people who deny their past. And he goes on to say, unless man is committed to the belief that all mankind are his brothers, then he labors in vain and hypocritically in the vineyards of equality. And most prophetically, when Powell states, press forward at all times, climbing forward toward that higher ground of the harmonious society that shapes the laws of man to the laws of God. Or many, I can begin with our generation at Colgate in the 1980s. I can begin with the prophetic words of the hip-hop prophet, Kool Moe Dee. How you like me now? I want to thank Suzanne Spring and Frank Kwan, who, like I, saw it fitting for the first of the OUS celebrations should rightly begin on campus during the academic year with the current cohort of OUS students. We held this event in April on Friday the 13th, Colgate Day, and it was a spectacular celebration of students, staff, faculty, and administration. I knew they would not be here to enjoy this one and wanted them to be the first to usher in these celebrations. Today I want to share with you the remarks that I made on that occasion because in many ways you are the audience that would best understand my journey through Colgate. I am one of the Colgate alum who entered into the program in 1983 when it was called the Minority Scholars Program. We were known on campus by both faculty, staff, and students as scholars. But at that time, it was not the way we use scholars in the current Colgate discourse to imagine research, intellect, and high achievement. No, it had a double entendre where scholars conjured a racialized group of students in the Colgate imaginary who it believed was not fully ready for Colgate. But what Colgate quickly learned was that it was not fully ready for us. It was not ready for Kenny and Sonny to sit on the steps of East Hall with the boom box during class time with their Kangos on, their Gazelles, their Adidas tracksuits, with Grandmaster Flash playing Don't Push Me Because I'm Close to the Edge. I'm trying not to lose my head. Say what? Say what? And then you were sitting in class and all you hear out the window was, it's like a jungle sometimes. It makes me wonder how people going under. So Colgate wasn't ready for us. For us, the ambiguous label of scholars did not define us, but instead we came to Colgate forging self-defined identities and understandings of ourselves, bringing the presence of our hometowns, with mine being Harlem, New York, along with bringing the social defiance of hip-hop and the confidence of communities that were from Black and Latino, Caribbean, and African across the world. And we made that our collective community here. As a student leader, my scholar OUS classmates and I were nationally and globally conscious. For example, we participated in sit-ins outside the president's office demanding complete divestment from South Africa and its apartheid regime. And at that time, much to my unbelief, there were students, mostly white, who were simultaneously protesting that Colgate should in fact increase its investments in South Africa. Because of those pro-divestment demonstrations, the protests actually made the New York Times in 1985. According to the Times, quote, at Colgate University in Hamilton, New York, a counter-demonstration was staged by a dozen of students who advocated increased investment in South Africa. David Lee, a leader of the group, asserted that this investment would leave South Africa in economic shambles and vulnerable to Marxist domination. Meanwhile, more than 80 Colgate students demonstrated for complete divestiture. I was a student at Colgate at a time when, while sitting in what was called then Cotton Lounge, me and my classmates could have white male students approach us with pointed fingers saying, you're the reason the tuition keeps going up. My dad's paying for you. Or have times when we would want to watch our TV shows in the student lounge, but couldn't because our Colgate classmates were devotedly watching President Reagan's State of the Union addresses. The world outside of Colgate and our OUS world were porous, and we lived the Du Boisian two-ness of those worlds. Although we were here at Colgate in a national climate when the then President Reagan supported a gradualist and accommodationist approach to white apartheid in South Africa, who in his political career opposed the Civil Rights Act of 1964, the Voting Rights Acts of 1965, and the Fair Housing Act of 1968, a president who vetoed the Civil Rights Restoration Act, who conjured up in his political imagination what he called black, quote, strapping young bucks buying T-bone steaks with food stamps, and who coined and gave African American women the famous and enduring stereotype of welfare queen. Although these were my Colgate years, this was not all of my Colgate experience, nor did we allow it to be. And there were faculty, staff, and fellow students who were central in my collective network of support at Colgate. We populated the Harlem Renaissance Center, La Casa, the Black Student Union, Unidad, West Indian Students Association, Conocione, the football fields, Sojourners, and We Funk. I also had some of the best intellectual moments as the generation who got to study with Manning Marable in the formation of the Africana and Latin American Studies program. And similar to Manning Marable, I had extraordinary teachers at Colgate, some who were still here on the faculty. Because of the influence of pioneering feminists like Marilyn Thie, Wanda Berry, Ann Ashbaugh, Rhonda Levine, I learned to value the importance of what it meant to be a woman on this campus. I learned to value the important religious contributions of indigenous and non-Christian communities from Chris Vesey and John Ross Carter. I came to honor humility and graciousness and hospitality from Coleman Brown. From Don Berry, I learned that every course must include a bit of wit, dry wit and humor when you least expect it. I avoided politically correct discourse and owe this to R.V. Smith, who always talked straight and uncensored to his students. From Josiah Young and Manning Marable, I learned to walk with dignity and to learn to love the ancestors of Africa. And from Harvey Sindima, my mentor in graduate school, who is in the back, who is still on this faculty, I learned to write and to theorize and to think from my center. I'm also a double alum of Colgate, receiving my master's degree in philosophy and religion in 1990. From this intellectual foundation of Colgate, I then went on to do doctoral work at Harvard University's Graduate School of Arts and Sciences, specifically in the Committee on the Study of Religion, where I was trained as a historian of religion, studying American religious history and the religious history of the African diaspora. I will never forget when I gave my first scholarly presentation as a Harvard graduate student at the American Academy of Religion, a professional society with some 10,000 members. It was my professors from Colgate who were there and who embraced me at the end of the presentation to tell me how proud they were of me. Ultimately, I am most appreciative to Colgate for two things, many, but these two in particular. One, Colgate is the first place where I came to meet Africa. R.V. Smith was on the faculty and arranged a semester-long study abroad for me, for Holly Smith, for Susan Burrell, and others, and for the first time in my life, I left the United States and spent the semester abroad studying in Kenya and Tanzania, and now have traveled to some 36 countries in the world. I owe that first global exposure to Colgate. My second debt of gratitude is because I have said publicly on several occasions, in many ways, Colgate saved my life. My mother was an educator in New York City public schools, and before we understood the danger of environmental toxins, my mother and several other teachers and administrators died due to working in asbestos-filled environments. As a result, the first semester of my sophomore year at Colgate, while I was shopping for the BSU dinner, my mother died. And it was this faculty, and those of you who are here with Colgate, and were here at Colgate with me, that made sure that I did not get lost after that tragedy or lose my own way to grief. My Colgate community in many ways saved me from the valley of the shadow of death, and I am grateful. Before I conclude, I want to share some reflections on what it means for me to now be Provost and Dean of the Faculty, the Chief Academic Officer. First, like Diane Ciccone stated, this is a time for me to give back. This is an act of professional reciprocity to this institution. I get to collectively co-vision and build the next academic endeavors and help hire the next generation of Colgate faculty who will mentor and teach the next generation of leaders. And that's a very, very powerful task. I get to sit in the administrative cabinet of Colgate and chart its future destiny and identity for the next century. It is no longer the 13 men with $13 and 13 dreams. Second, I have an extraordinary working relationship with President Brian Casey, and I'm honored to be a part of an administrative team that cares for and gives its very best to Colgate each and every day. At last night's dinner, someone came to me and said that they watched the interactions that I have with President Casey, and that it is so good to see that we have a deep respect and affection for one another. And we do, and it's real, and it's authentic. I could do many meaningful things and could be doing many meaningful things in my professional life at this time, and I chose to follow the visionary leadership and integrity of President Brian Casey. This is also a time of wonderful alignment with this administration and the current Board of Trustees. It's amazing to engage a board where many of its members overlap with my time as a student at Colgate, like Teresa Delgado and Kathleen Dill, to have Leroy Cody there, and now Dennison will be coming on, and to have been classmates with the head of the Board of Trustees, Dan Hurwitz. Collectively, we have a desire, as do you, to build upon and to deepen Colgate's strengths, to expand Colgate in innovative academic ways, and to continue to have Colgate remain a leading liberal arts institution in the country, one that continues to welcome those like me and those like you into the Shenango Valley. In closing, I wanted to say on this 50th anniversary occasion that many of us were first-generation college students who came to Colgate blanketed in all of the hopes of our family, all of the hopes of our communities, determined to succeed and to make Colgate and our lives at Colgate more meaningful for our sake and for Colgate's sake. We had in the forefront of our minds communities of accountability, those communities who we had left behind but saw ourselves linked to with their future and their destinies. We were always talking about what are we going to do for the community, because we always saw that the cord that we had here was a cord that was connected back to the communities at home. As we celebrate OUS on this golden anniversary, know that it is a time when the institution must pause to celebrate me, to celebrate you, to celebrate those who date back decades and centuries before us. So let's celebrate ourselves. Let's celebrate our 50 years of defying all odds, and let's celebrate a space that by our very presence constantly breathed and continues to breathe new life into this place we call Colgate. When Colgate celebrates its bicentennial next year in 2019, it is our collective pulse as alumni of color that would have been a vital part of the lifeblood of this institution. Thank you. I think according to Veronica, I'm supposed to see if there are any comments, questions, reflections, remarks. One of the things I said last night when we were at President Casey's house and I was seeing so many of my wonderful friends, I paraphrased Jennifer Lopez and I said, yes, I am the provost and the dean of the faculty and the chief academic officer, but I'm still Tracy from the block. So, comments, reflections, tell us about your time at OUS. We're going to give the elder a pass on that.
Yes.
My heart is really full. Because as I look at you, you embody the legacy that is so reflective of our strength and our resilience and all that makes us capable of defying the multitude of odds that we had to face. And I feel so much pride because you haven't, to put it bluntly, sold out. I feel such pride to see you standing in the garb of our ancestors at an institution like this. And it gives me hope that we can fight the fight that needs to be fought. And it has so much significance because I see so much that makes me feel hopeless when I'm home and when I travel abroad in terms of the condition that colored people face. And it's not a good space to be in, to feel that level of hopelessness because the odds are so great. But to see you holding this position, it gives me hope. And I feel such immense pride in what you've done. I don't take it lightly. because the significance is so great. I feel that you're carrying the torch that's going to have an impact for young people for years to come. And that just means so much, which is why I feel so much emotion behind it. And I want to acknowledge publicly what you're doing and what you've done. It's worth it's inspirational. Thank you.
I can't tell you what it means to see you standing here. Because what we have been through, our ancestors, you give us, like she said, you give us hope. And from this day forward, we will always be a part of this narrative. And they can't put us under the rug like they've done for 200 years. And I know you'll do great things. I'm just so happy. And I know.
Was this recorded so I can share it with my classes and students?
Veronica says yes.
Tracy, can I add to your history? I should say that Tracy didn't seek this job. She was invited, we have a program that we invite back scholars to come back for a period. So Tracy comes back as the first invited scholar in this new program. She comes, and I just want to tell the story because it's great. So they bring, someone brought you in, a junior faculty member, to sort of ceremoniously meet me, whatever. So we sat down. Within about, I don't know, a minute,
Yes.
right? We realized we have so many we share one of our great intellectual advisors is a professor of religious studies at Harvard, David Hall. We both studied under the same person. So I think we just talked nonstop, ignoring our host.
Yes.
And then,
Well, I have to give this anecdote. So Brian says a comment, and I said, "Oh, you sound like David Hall." And he said, "Well, of course, that was my advisor." And I said, "Well, that was my advisor." And then we had this wonderful.
we just talked, and then simultaneously we were conducting the search for the provost and the dean of the faculty, and all of a sudden we kept talking somehow, and all of a sudden, in my mind, you were a candidate. You were not a candidate for a really long time. I'm like, Tracy, I'm offering you this job. So when your comment about authenticity, she entered into this position from a place of her intellectual life and her return to the campus. So I think of your entering that search and you're taking this position to have come in such an unusual way. And I've always thought that I wish all provosts could begin their service at institutions the way you did. I don't think you realized, I remember telling you, I said, Tracy, I'm offering you the job. We were talking about something else, but I just want people to know that she came to this position in such a unique, generative way. And I think you picked that up. So I want people to know that too.
And I was on campus for 2 weeks. I taught like 10 classes. I did, I think, 2 brown bags, 2 faculty workshops, did a film series, met with student affinity groups. And it was at the time with all there was nor'easters like every day. And it took me an hour to shovel out my car. And I was like, I don't see how they do it here, because I was like, and I said, oh, I got 1 more week. Because at the time I was at Davidson College in North Carolina, so I'm going back to North Carolina. And it's when I get back to North Carolina that I get this call, because I didn't even know they were searching. And it was just amazing. And I'll tell the last part of the anecdote. When you called me to offer me the position. It was the anniversary of my father's death. And I remember saying to Brian that I can't even talk now. And would it be okay if he called me back? And he understood, because in his first year he had lost his father also. And so, thank you. I always say that I'm here because President Casey had the courage and the boldness to select me. And I also say that many of you may not know that President Casey was a dean under Ruth Simmons at Brown University, the first African-American woman there. And I always say that it was there that he realized the brilliance of black women, but never let that intimidate him in any way. So I thank you for your journey. Yes.
I'm class of 71.
Ernest Powell, class of 1971.
I don't need to change the mood that's been established. When I first got the letter about the celebration, I had no clue as to what OUS was. The only acronym I knew while at Colgate was the ABC, Association of Black Collegians. And so when I saw this as the 50th anniversary of OUS, I was wondering if the university was trying to, what's the word I'm looking for, change the scenario. And instead of calling it what I feel it was, which was the 50th anniversary of black students taking over the administration. So, was that the case?
Not at all.
Tracy, you answer that.
Not at all.
Okay.
I think those who may have assembled the invitation initially may not have known all of the history of the iterations of what this was. And we will correct that. Especially when you have two historians in the administration. We don't want to lose that history. That is important.
Which is what I think we were talking about this morning with Diane in Diane Sacconi's lecture. Presentation, I should say.
Yes. Because to erase that history is to erase you and to erase me and to erase the current students, to erase those and Diane's work is bringing all of us into visibility in press and in print. Yes.
So Tracy, let me ask this question. You have a room full of brilliant, engaged alums. What is it that we can help you with to keep you moving forward?
Well, people can give in many ways. You know, I think what we need as we move into the third century, we need people who can give time, or people who can give talent, or people who can give treasure. We had, I think, advancement here. But one of those, we need people who can give time, who can come on campus and spend time with our students. What was transformative to me and for me in the 80s was around the time when Diane and Greg Threed and others began to come back, and we realized we were not an isolated community here, but that there was a legacy and a network of Colgate that was beyond us, and that was so impactful for me, for you to come back and to begin to tell us about Adam Clayton Powell Jr. and others. And for those of us who were here, we remember that we weren't just a community, an insular community trying to survive here. We had a network that was somewhere out there. And for those who could come, and you come, and those who can come, I want to continue to invite you back to campus. So during the academic year, so our students can see you, so they understand that they stand in a great lineage and tradition and network. That is not just them here on this campus, but there's another global campus that they are a part of Colgate alums. The other thing is talent. I want them to have a network outside of this. You know, want to be able to have them connected to you for mentorship purposes, for professional purposes. Many of the careers that they want to go into, you have already succeeded in. And I want them to see those models and those examples of success and be able to know that the talents that you have are talents that you can share and continue with these students. And then when they graduate, to welcome them into this alumni network. So they're not just going out into a world that's Colgate-less, but that's Colgate full. And so it's another way to be able to do that with your talents. And then we need your treasure. And you can give treasure in many ways. I will tell you this story. I think President Casey may have announced that I would be the new provost and dean of the faculty, and the representative of the class of 1987 connected to advancement emailed me and said, now that you are dean and provost of the college, how much would you like to give for our 1987 class? And so, I had to pull out the checkbook and give. But there are many ways that you can give. And the way that I chose to give is I earmarked, first I earmarked the money for the Culture Center and for financial aid. And I put the gift in honor of Castelloni, class of 1986. So there are ways that you can give. There are ways that the current OUS requires funding all the time. We have undocumented students here on campus, and faculty come to me wanting funds for that. They also come to me just wanting extra programming. There's so many ways that you can do that. So you can give through your treasure by giving that. But I also want to ask you to give in ways that are not earmarked, that entrusts me and the president and the administration to be good stewards of your money so that we can then channel it into larger academic initiatives and efforts here on the campus that will benefit and make this institution so impactful for centuries and decades to come. So we ask that you give from the heart in the places where you want to give, and also give in a spirit of trust, knowing that we will be good stewards of your funding also. And so that's one way you can give. And then for me personally, your prayers, your good energy, your occasional phone call, email, text, to see how a sister is doing up here in Hamilton, New York. When you hear that prediction, and there were predictions where we're going to get 30 inches of snow, you check on me. Yes. You wonder how I'm doing up and down Cardiac Hill. And then, during reunion weekend, come back and see me, because it has been so great to see so many of you. Come back and see a sister. So that is also one way. Yes.
Have you felt well received?
I have.
The faculty overall?
Yes. Yes. It has been a wonderful first year. And also it was a wonderful personal kind of connection for me, because I went to Davidson College in 2014, and at that moment my dad was diagnosed with advanced stages of cancer, and after my first year he passed away. And coming back to Colgate was a very healing space for me personally, because my father has selected Colgate. He followed, Colgate sports and knew that you could go there and get a good lesson too. And so I applied to Colgate out of respect for my father, with never the intent of coming. Yes. And Donovan, you know how I got here? I came here. They used to have a weekend where you can meet and come up. And I said, well, okay, I'll come up and visit. But I'd already given my yes to another institution. And I came up, and Joan Westcar was the person who hosted me. And by the time I had met those who would be my classmates and those who were already here established, I knew that this was the place. So much so that Joan took me down to the bank, and with $25 I started my checking account. My father was thrilled. But coming back here has been a very healing space for me. I still have the memories of what it meant for my father to drive me, and my mother also to drive me up to Colgate and entrust this institution with the life, the mind, and the spirit of their daughter. They left me here with their dreams, and Colgate didn't fail that. Yes.
I am not listening. I am grateful to see that you have been chosen and that President Casey chose an amazing person. I remember when you came your freshman year, you were just a ray of sunshine, and I was like, she's gonna make it, and you were my sister back then, and you still are, and we fought a good battle like this, and I was a year older, but we knew, Aretha knew, I knew, and I just was so amazed when I got the news from Rhonda Levine saying, do you know who's going to be? I said, Rhonda, you tell me who. I said, we've come a long way from Chucky days. Chuck Trout was the provost. And we've come a long way from that to you. And I want to tell you that I've set your picture in the frame and will sit in my office.
Oh.
And I will pray every day that you'll be as successful as you are in the
Thank you. One of the things that I learned early on was, although I spend my time primarily with the faculty, the impact that my presence had here on students. And so during my first week on campus, I was coming from President Casey's house and driving past the Cultural Center, and I saw, some African American women, and I rolled down the window and I said, "Hi, I am." They said, "We know who you are." And so to know the impact of that, or the impact of what it meant. One weekday I was in a meeting, several people in my office, and my assistant knocks on my door and says, "There's a young man here who says he needs to see you and he's not leaving." And this was a young African-American male who, I don't even know how he found me in McGregor, kind of off the beaten path. And I cleared my office and said, "I need to take this student." And this young man comes in and he was clearly distraught over something and couldn't even look at me. And he sat down and he said, "I didn't know where else to go, so I came here." And I said, "Well, you came to the right place." And he was having a moment about something, and I said, "I'm so glad you came here." So I didn't even know that he would even know where my office was, but he knew that there was a dean that looked like him in that building in the corner of McGregory. And he found his way, sat down in the waiting room, and politely said, "I'm not leaving till I see her." And so what that symbolically means for those on campus. And when I speak to students, I let them know, I am you and you are me, and so there are no boundaries in terms of what you can achieve at Colgate and beyond Colgate. And I also, because they want to talk to me about my time here, I don't try to romanticize it, and I didn't try to romanticize it here. The situation was what it was, but as people of color, we never let the external situations dictate and dominate who we are internally. And so continue to do that. I continue to give them that message here. Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Elwood Berry, class of 1971, had not been on this campus 1967. And the extraordinary thing is that he said he had not been back since May of 67 when he graduated. So this is an extraordinary time, and I want Alumni of Color to really capitalize on the momentum that we have here and think about what we can do going forward with this institution, with those of us on the board, in the administration, and those of us who are the Alumni of Color network in this world. This is a great time. We can make this Colgate third century, our century. And let's try to see how we can collectively bring that about. Yes.
Tracy, I'm only, as you know, 2 hours away. And so call me, email me. I will give you my time, however I can benefit. I've done things for Colgate before. I've been here before to do things for the students. So I feel like you're one of ours. You know, we're the representatives of 86, and so we remember you when you were here. So there's a whole sense of pride that we have, because we think you're ours. But you took me back, not just, you know, with the references to the boombox and what we did while we were here, but also with Kester and Aretha and Anthony, who were all class of 86.
Yes.
That we still can't believe are not with us. But we were a group of students that came here. We were those Black and Puerto Rican kids from the city, even though we weren't all from New York City. We were those Black and Puerto Rican kids from New York City who didn't belong here, who took the place of other students who should have been here. And that was the atmosphere that we felt. And so for us, this place and each other, we were our grounding. You know, and I know that we wanted the ones that came after us, who were here at the same time, to feel that welcome. Because we knew at the time how hard it felt just to be yourself in the midst of all this, what seemed to be negative energy. But you know, after leaving here and going to law school, I began to appreciate Colgate. Because when you leave here, you don't always have even that group. Because the world seems to get bigger and you seem to get smaller. And I was still in upstate New York. And so I went back to a lot of those same memories, and it reminded me of the things that we did while we were here. That it wasn't all negative, it was positive. You know, being in La Casa, you know, and remembering how we used to have our Latin dances and our salsa music and all the arroz con gandule and pasteles and plátanos, and maybe some other would come up and cook. It just took us back. And just listening to you, and you're ours. Sorry, you're ours.
You know, it takes a lot. You really need to shower. So you know, I feel so proud that I know you, and your demeanor has always remained the same when you were here. And so it's just a very proud moment to be here. I've always loved Colgate, and I always thought Colgate had tried. And I'm hoping that with you being here, it will complete the process, because it is such a proud moment to call this institution that I've always loved the school, but I even love it more, and I wish you the best of luck.
Thank you.
So, I would like to differ just a little bit what John said, because I don't see it as ever being complete. I think the process is ongoing. You know what I mean? And so, in that vein, I'm curious, and obviously you don't have to answer the question, but I know you have a charge that's been put to you from the university trustees and so forth as to what your role is here and what you're supposed to accomplish. Do you have a personal vision that you came into this role with, that you would like to see before you leave, if you should ever leave? Is there something that you personally feel like, this is something that I have to do before I leave this campus?
There's several things that we're working on in the larger piece. For me, a lot of it is intangible. It's about how do we keep the mission and the values of Colgate solid for every generation to come, and do whatever we need to do around that to keep that there, and to keep this a welcoming space for everyone. And so that requires triaging a number of things. It requires what we do with the curriculum. It's about what we do with the faculty. It's about what we do with students who are coming in. It's about the development of all of those together. It's about the connections we keep outside of Colgate to keep that going. And it's about, I think, also being able to, I was at the President's Club brunch this morning, and the President's Club are those who are $1 million or more donors who love Colgate. And I'm here, I'm there, and I'm here, and I'm trying to figure out always, how do I take the love that they have for Colgate and match that with the love that you have for Colgate, and then be able to distill that into what can make that a better Colgate at all times.
And does the decision rest with you?
Oh, it's a collective decision. It's a collective decision. You know, I work with the president, we work with the cabinet, we work with the faculty, We work with the dean of the college and other administrators. And we work with the students. We listen to the students also to hear what that means. For me, I think the best vision of Colgate is a co-vision. Some of the challenges I think have been in the past have been the perception that some administrators come in and they have a vision, and it's just their vision, and that vision sometimes becomes a top-down approach. And me and President Casey are very clear that's not what we want, that we want a collective and a collaborative vision going forward for Colgate. And it includes the alums also. So there's a whole kind of network of Colgate that I think, and I've said this a number of times, there are many Colgates. And I think that we have the best of our jobs here when we can take the best of all of those Colgates and move that forward in very structural and institutional ways that can be enduring.
Tracy, not to make things too granular, but I think one of the biggest challenges in your role as dean of faculty in the coming few years is a significant turnover of faculty members. And we're talking some 30%, maybe more. So, and of course, faculty is a hire of 4 years, the way things are structured now, with tenure and things of that sort. So I wonder if you just talk a little bit about how you think about the development of that faculty and the things that you're going to have to do, the impact that you have actually over the next several decades, even if you aren't here to see the end of that. It's just, you're going to have a huge impact.
I come back to an institution where my undergrad advisor is still on the faculty and with no plans to retire yet. So we are a faculty where many of your teachers are still here active on the faculty. So we do have a sizable population that in the near and next decade or so will probably be, so we have a huge turnover in this next century of faculty and what that means. And one of the things I did from day one is every single week, we had about maybe 10 or 11 departmental searches this year that bring in about maybe 3 to 4 candidates each. And I met with every single one of those candidates because I feel my role is about active recruitment here on this campus. And so I meet with every single candidate that comes on this campus. My vision about thinking about faculty in the next is how do we get, and President Casey talked about this, how do we get the best of the faculty? People on campus know that there's certain words that we can't use to describe Colgate. Remote is one of them. Middle of nowhere is another one. Isolated is another one. So there's certain things that I say, I'm going to purge from the vocabulary. I said, if we're not in the middle of nowhere, I'm here. Many of us are here. And so I tried to one, kind of re-narrativize the location of Colgate and talk about its strength. I don't know if any of you have ever visited Williams College.
Yeah.
Yes. Now, when you have to fly into one state and to go by road to get to the next state, yes. I went on the Williams College website, put in the word remote, and it only came up in connection to IT, how to get online remotely. So I said, we're going to be like Williams College. We're not going to talk about location. We're going to talk about the strengths of what it means to be here at Colgate, to be able to train and teach top students, to be able to have a great research agenda while still being a fabulous teacher by having faculty support. I talk about our strengths here. So one is about recruitment. And then we'll have to talk about retention and what that means. The president talked a little bit about this. I was at Haverford College, which could house about 80% of its faculty. And I said, I need housing. I need places to be able to put faculty to begin to generate communities here in Hamilton, New York. And I tell, those who are recruiting, because Syracuse is not that far. As long as you can get out and be able to take a flight out, many of you in New York City, it takes longer than that to get to JFK or LaGuardia. And I can be at Syracuse Airport. So I re-narrativize the notion of where we are spatially, but also thinking about larger initiatives in academic areas where we don't have right now. And so I'm imagining faculty doing things that we don't yet do yet, and be able to bring that into fruition also. And also be able to think about what it means for us to continue to stay like a leading academic institution. So be able to recruit new faculty, to be able to create new academic initiatives, but still keep the integrity of the liberal arts and not move toward a kind of pre-professional Research One university, where we undermine the integrity of what it means to be great teachers here with small classes. So it's all of those things are collective for me, but it will be just amazing to see what this faculty will be, over many years, in the years to come. Or, you're making certain assumptions, Leroy, because when Jerry Balmuth was here 57 years. So people still have, Dr. Sandima, he still have a couple more years, to live out 57. So there are faculty that love it here at Colgate and are here for a long run in that. But it's wonderful for me to come back and to have that generation still here. It's a wonderfully intergenerational faculty that we have now. And I think that's one of our strengths as a faculty as well.
I'm class of 71. Something about what you said when you could hear classes in rap music playing. You didn't have boom boxes. You had stereo. And you could walk by the quad and almost at a given time and you could hear I Want You Back by Michael Jackson. And James Brown played because we would put the speakers in the window and turn the volume up. So you all had the newer invention of the boom box. But we made the sound on the quad nonetheless.
There's a wonderful scene in a movie, Shawshank Redemption, when Morgan Freeman writes on the top, "I was here," and we're etched in Colgate. We were here, we're still here. In the next century, we will continue to be here. And I think that, and no one can miss our presence when we are here. And that is wonderful from generation to generation.
No. Some things never change.
Any final comments? Questions? Yes.
So to the point about what people can do, I think it's really important to show up. So Brian is, every place I've seen Brian is like this weekend, he's thanks people for coming back to campus. But I think showing up, wherever that is, whether it's in your local community, Alan hosted in Los Angeles in March, an event for students on spring break who were interested in media, or whether it's Diane, who's somehow doing this crazy book. The book's not crazy. Diane's crazy for doing it, making the effort to do the book and putting together our history. But showing up, and Shed is constantly reaching out to people, asking people to show up, let's say here on campus or at events around the country and the world, actually. So even if you don't think that your classmate or your friend or Soul Patrol, the Soul Patrol will be there. I think to show up and be present is a really important thing to do. You don't have to, as my father always said, show up, you can always go home. So I would really encourage people to show up places. Colgate was not the right school for me, and I don't think I ever should have come here. And people ask me about that, and I'm like, I don't know why I ever came here, but now I give a lot of time to the school, so people ask why is that, and it's because no matter what, I actually did come to school here, and this is the place that has enabled me to live my life. So I really encourage you to show up. And then the other thing I'd like to say is that the President's Club, because you can see my lanyard says President's Club, I did not give $1 million to Colgate. The President's Club is for the school's highest donors, but believe it or not, that is a $2,000 a year commitment. And if you're a Colgate couple, this means it's only $1,000 each, which is something that eternally bothers me. But I will just
okay. Yes. Thank you for that correction. So get your $2,000 together.
This is an important. It's a lot of people say that Colgate is constantly asking them it's important to be a member of the President's Club because it's important to, again, be present. So however you choose to be president, I encourage you to do that. I encourage you to talk to people like Chev, who is very creative about helping people figure out how to be available and present. You know, Teresa made me show up for graduation to be president. I'm here this weekend to be president, class of '89, I'm still next year. And it's an important thing to do, so I encourage you.
The other thing is to open your homes. I had a student who came to me and wanted to know if there were alumni who would be willing to host them during breaks. Some of our students have challenging homes that they don't want to go to over break, and some of them have no home. This is their home over break, and so they stay here over winter break, over spring break. And the student said, would I be able to talk to alumni? So those of you who would be interested in opening your homes and may even have some support for the students to travel to you over break, we have some real on-the-ground granular needs here. And I said to that student, I would make sure I talked to the Alumni Council about it already, so we can have a AOC B&B for students who don't have homes to go to, and you have wonderful homes. And so those of you who are interested in hosting students over break, let me know, just even something like that. There's so many ways that you can give, and you can do that in your own home.
Well, Tracy, we love you, and just know that we have your back.
Thank you. Thank you, and thank you all.
Thank you.